Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Nature Folklore. It's the 6th of November, 2022. I don't actually have an entry video this time because I've had an hour of tech issues and I've just this second got onto you. So I'll go straight on with the show. Thank you, all of you that'll hear and will probably be joining on very soon. Thank you for joining me. It's our weekly time of exploring nature-centered folklore and connecting this within your favorite sanctuary space and expressing inspired visions from your sanctuary through your poetry, writing arts, craft, performance, and problem solving. And this is not only the 7th of what now be our Nature Folklore editions leading up to the cross-quarter Sawan. It's also sorry, tech issues again. It's the last Nature Folklore broadcast on Sunday until Imbolc 2022. And today I'm going in a different direction, and that shouldn't be up. I want to write support books to this series of 4 Nature Folklore books, and I'm continuing to broadcast the Holy Wars Revival on the Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Irish time. And I do not have any time in the week at the moment doing these broadcasts for writing. So that's my intention and goals. And so I'm going to be doing that instead of the Sunday Nature Folklore for a while. And what I'll do is replace the broadcast with writing chapters and connecting them together. Most of it's already written for the Nature Folklore books, a series of 4. It's going to be a series of 4 because there's too much content for just one book, and they'll all be released. They've all got dates in 2023, and to go over it again, the Imbolc Spring Flowing will be out on Monday, 30th of January. Then I'll have the Bildner and Summer Sowing. That will come out 24th of April on a Monday. And then the Lunasa and Autumn Harvest on Monday, the 31st of July. And then the final one, Sawan and Winter Dreaming, coming out on Monday, 30th of October. And I'll update my Patreon page when I get a bit of time, probably have a bit more time next week to explain more of what I'm doing. These updates always take a couple of days or so to program in too. So I'm including a Patreon level to qualify for your own copies of the upcoming books. I'll explain that eventually in the Patreon. And I'm also going to release short videos along the way to introduce you to how I'm getting on with this project. Anyway, as I say, Holy Wars Revival, the live broadcast I do on Wednesday, that's going to keep going on Wednesdays. The special guests today are going to be a surprise because though I am live, I'm not sure which guests will be featured, who's turning up, who's not turning up. It's a bit of a mystery. So let's go. We got cattle in the background, so that's great. We got a lovely poet already here. And so, as I say, I'll go back to that. There's the logo for today. What is the veil? And one thing I would love to do to start with, this is actually a video. It's from Locker. I think I did it in 2006. It's KNL. And I've showed you it to you before, but I think this is it. When it's, I think tomorrow's going to be so rainy that you won't be able to see this if you went up to this KNL. You can't now because it really needs farmers' permission up in Locker. So they've really put the screws on there in the area. But I went up there in 2000. This is either 2005 or 2006. And if you were around yesterday when it was beautiful morning, it is possible to have seen this. Anyway, I'll play the video and I'll get the rest of the stuff set up while this is playing. Through. Well. Ah, great. Caught me while I was trying to get myself a little bit of water there. Yeah, that was a bit of the lock crew there. Anyway, these, as usual, these nature folklore sessions videos, the Tree and Water Sanctuary support, and now the Holy Welsh Revival on the Wednesdays, all brought with the fantastic help of you people and you subscribers. Without them, I couldn't fund putting on these shows and share with them today. So thank you very much for this. We've got a lot of sun coming through the window now, which is very nice. I wish I could throw the sun on you. It's unpredictable. Anyway, thank you for your help. That is the address there for the Patreon. And some people don't like going through the PayPal there, so I'll throw the wee little banner up for the last time. You can just go through a card with a buy me a coffee right there with the address for me there. Well, as I say, pound, as I say, usually say a euro pound or $1 a month. Collectively, it really helps a lot. It helps with subscriptions and repairs and things like that to keep the show on the road, keep it afloat. So many thanks for your help. Let's see what lovely early birds are here. One of the computers decided to go strange, and the cat's in here at the moment, and the cat was only looking at it. I'm just making sure the cat doesn't walk over it. So there we go. Let's see who's around at the moment, which is fabulous. By the way, I didn't put the sign up. Anybody who's watching, please introduce yourself and put in where you're actually watching from. We got Jane Gilgan in here. Happy to be in the audience. Thank you, Jane, for being in the audience. And there's Susan Dobney from Avebury. Wonderful, Susan. Thanks for tuning in. And the lovely Kate Cloud Sparks there from Iowa. Great to be here. And Susan's reminding us that she is from Avebury, which is wonderful. And our wonderful Tune Smith and songster Cliff Carr is here. Good afternoon to you, Cliff. Penny's here. We got Penny on a bit later. Cold and wet North Lincolnshire. You're back home. Goodness, very good. Wood burners on today. Same here. Same everybody. And there we are. And Gary has just jumped out the sea and put some clothes on, which is lovely. Thanks for joining us, Gary. Or are you watching this in the sea? That's lovely. He's actually been doing... I should remember the name of it, but he's been dipping in the sea, helping to raise funds for men's cancer research. Dicky Dip, that's it. That's what he was involved in. So well done, Gary, for that. Neve Sloan here from Selbridge in Ireland as well. Lovely to have you in board. Wonderful. Let's see. Good to be here. Hello, everyone, says Cattle, which is great. I think someone else has come in. Yeah, we got Kelly here, Sewell from Vermont. Wonderful. Lovely. And we got definitely people arriving. As this is the last one, there's Charlene Hidalgo from Seattle, up sort of early, which is wonderful to get people that far away. So thank you very much. So I try and get on with the show. I haven't got my photos in the order that I should have. That's what I was held up for. So I'll improvise the best that I can, which is wonderful. So the thing is really, what is the veil, and what is my that's another thing I should have shown. I showed Loughcrew, also Mound of Hostages at Tara. That's the inside. I'm not sure if there's any guides that will let you in at the moment, but if it was a sunny morning around about now, like yesterday, that's the time when the Mound of Hostages in Tara lights up. Sorry, I haven't got the mound on the outside. I haven't put the picture up for that. But blank. What is the veil? There's that one there. And I think it's very symbolic calling this what is the veil, because it's talked about a lot during Halloween and so on. And the veil folklore we come across these days seems to be mainly an illusion and a vision. Let's bring that back up. That's actually Claire Roach in the Markery Castle Church. But I think it's a wonderful bit of imagery for the veil that we can show today. And I think the veil, the idea of the veil, a lot of it was created during the 19th century Celtic Romance times. And mainly the UK-based Spiritualist Church movement gained traction through the 19th century as well. And they also picked up on this spiritual veil concept, and they used it. That's another. If some of you might have been to Ornagot, I think that's very symbolic of in Ireland. If you go into actually crossing the veil, and in more modern times, pagans and New Agey meetups, New Agey meetups, they use words, I think, like thin veil and crossing the veil. And that's the basis for a ritual ceremony that's shared at this time. I'll bring him up in a minute. There's also a fairly modern belief in thin places, and perhaps I'll bring that picture up because that's definitely a thin place. A lot of people going down through there. That's a hawthorn tree, and below that at Ornagat, which is near Rathcrowan. If you go to the Rathcrowan Visitor Centre in Roscommon, they will do a guided tour for you and take you down. You can dare to go down yourself. The funny thing is, I haven't got the picture up. But there's a cat, there's a black cat that actually will greet you as you're either going in or going down. And you might know that Ornagot is translated by many as the cave of the cat. So that's very novel to have the cat there. But it is, it goes down very deep. It starts narrow and it goes deeper and deeper. Sorry for this time, I didn't put any pictures up because that's not really the subject that we're covering today. But anyway, that is a place that people call a thin place, and it mixes well with the veil of belief and stories. Other ones I've talked about the dragon stories in there and the serpent stories. But the veil word itself may not have been in otherworld folklore before the 19th century, not in the way that it's referred to now. The references are of the other world, and there's also descriptions of entities such as the sidhe that seem to go back into ancient times and probably back to the early medieval scribes. So I'll bring this lad back. Yeah, I'll try and bring him back. There he is. That's the artist's impression of the sort of person that rewriting those sort of things. Those scribes, they were really challenged trying to write down these oral spoken stories by people coming up to them, because these scribes, they would have been educated to write in Greek and Latin symbols, writing in linear, left to right. Some of them might have been writing right to left as well, but this is a very different way of thinking to the people that were actually orally trying to tell them stories, and they had to try and translate out, a bit like square pegging a round hole situation. So they're very challenged, and in the end, I think they made a bit of their own interpretations. Plus, they had a situation where they had chieftain and abbot patrons, and these patrons, well, if I'm paying you for your lodgings and your food and so forth, then they would get the scribes to bend to something that's in their favor, because a lot of these abbots and the chieftains, they wanted everything written to be hero worshipping their legacy. I think I've got a picture. Here we go. Well, there we go. There's an abbot in that case with scribes, and looks as if he's about to check up what the scribe has written for him, and the scribe looking a little bit modest there to see what is done. Anyway, it does seem that since humans could tell stories, they've always included some way of telling about humans interacting with entities. Have I got an entity picture there? There we go, something like that. And crossing over these entities, crossing over over our realm, and also entities crossing over to us too. There's another one there that we can go on with. Changeling stories, yeah, that's another part of this, and the appearance of the sidhe and the fairies. That's some artist impression of that. But most of what we hear and read about these entities these days, they're coming from the 19th century style retranslations. And Also, through our modern digital and social media mediums, that's caused incredible major changes in translation and the way that these stories are told. A lot of people are not realizing, I suppose, a lot of people that are the new storytellers, they're of the age when they were almost born into social media. So, that's the way they've learned and kind of understood and translated things. Now, the versions of otherworld stories and interpreters, I personally see and hear them now, they're very, very different to how I heard them through my own childhood in the 50s. And so through this Nature Folklore session, we're also celebrating some of our guests. We're going to have a few people. I'm trying to see where I am with the pictures. As I say, I didn't, they're sort of ad hoc at the moment. Let's see where we got. We got that person. All right, there we go. That's very nice. I think we'll talk about him in a moment, and her as well. But as I say, we got some wonderful guests. Their guests, most of these have been on our Nature Folklore sessions over the past 3 years. It's almost 3 years since I've been doing this, certainly through the COVID. And these guests have shared with us their creative work that have been inspired by visions and wisdoms that came from somewhere else, unexplained, and another realm, I think we may say. And so through this episode, I'm speaking about crossing the veil, but between my own blether, such as what I'm rappling on here, guests will share some of their veil and otherworld related stories. Now, one person, excuse me, I take a bit of a sip. Denise Terry, she was going to be on live with us, but I got a call saying she wasn't. So I've got something from the archives of Denise to pass us by, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the encore of this. This is Denise with First Fires. First Fires.
Blessings, as the first fire's golden warmth light up the dark, the tears fall from the silver skies, carried on the east wind. The sparks soar high and ignite the spirits, remembering our beloveds, near, far, and beyond the veil. Rejoice in letting go, release and replenish. A new beginning is seeded. Fuel your dream fires with certainty. Spirit is watching and supporting your next step. Sing, dance and celebrate the Celtic New Year. Merry be.
Wonderful. Thanks very much there, Denise. Fabulous. Now, I didn't actually, I'm thrilled about this. We got someone through the YouTube. Let's see, have a go at the pronunciation. Of Kung Fu Shaolin. Hello. Great, someone got through the YouTube, because the people I approached that do view YouTube, I just didn't get time to post this session up with them. So sorry. So anyone who's found us through YouTube for live, thank you very much. Very grateful for that. Lovely. Great. Now, let's carry on with crossing the veil. What we call crossing over the veil is also very related, as I say, to what the Spiritualist Church is saying. They talk about crossing over. There's someone else has appeared, I think. Let's have a look. Sorry. Almost getting kicked off the broadcast here. Lev will do, he says. Okay, Lev, thank you very much. So Lev is here, and correct pronunciation too. So there we go. Brilliant. Anyway, carrying on, what we might call the crossing the veil today is also very related, as I was saying, to crossing over, which is the term that's used by members of the Spiritualist churches. That's what they tend to talk about. And the concept of, and there we go, is a bit of crossing the veil. I got a couple of pictures up. I'm probably supposed to have talked about them before. But anyway, what's that fella doing? Anyway, well, I'll bring that in. The concept of heaven and hell, I think, a very important part of this veiled vision, the illusion and the concepts too. But I think most major world religions, somehow they've adopted some form of heaven and hell concepts that they separate them. It's like heaven and hell are like separate afterlife realms. And I got some sort of picture to explain this, if it'll come up. Let's see what we got. No, that isn't it. Okay. I've got a bit muddled in my pictures. Sorry about that. I'll catch up in a moment. Anyway, the one, the heaven, obviously there's a pleasant place, and the other one's torturous, and humans pass into them after this life, and it's all based on an ultimate judgment, isn't it? Who's going to heaven, who's going to hell, based on our lives on earth. And I always question who on earth makes this judgment. It's not very clear who judges this heaven and hell business. And even if there is such a judge, how did they become a judge? And we don't question those things, I don't think. So what does seem odd also is how we may be commanded. In order to get to heaven, it's amazing how many religions get us to live a life of penance, don't they? I'm just going to see what's going on here. Right, okay. Yeah, I'm kind of... Right, yeah. Okay, so, yeah, who's commanding heaven and hell? Anyway, I'll go back to the pictures, because I think I should have included these. Let's get pictures going for you. Yeah, these are just sort of like the spiritualist medium there with someone behind him from the other world, I think. And there's another lovely Claire Roach. I think it's a lovely otherworld imagery. But heaven and hell, there you go. There's the difference between heaven and hell. I think we can use that one. And our rewards when we get to heaven and hell there. So having said that, most of us are not impressed with the lifestyle of humans that live in abundance, are we? And because often with abundance, it means extreme consumption and enforced austerity that seems to accompany this. So you get people in an extreme abundance, which we've seen a lot of, especially in the last couple of years with the massive profits, etc. Someone's dinging me. Is there a problem? No, not at all. And even cruel slavery upon humans to create an abundance. God, your messages are really flying. Great. So, do you think overabundance? Are there ways of heading for hell? So I believe in sharing a balance that does not need heaven and hell carrots dangled in front of us. But that may be, talking about that's another session, maybe not even Nature's Folklore. It's certainly a very good poetry subject, I think. So I personally find it hard to believe in any indigenous tribes actually believing in these extreme divisions like heaven and hell. I think I've got let's get this one up. You get something like this. Who is the judge? Yeah, just a wee sort of cartoon on that. And there's another one I've got here, which I found was fascinating. That's supposed to be a picture of heaven. You go into a gated community. How many of these heaven pictures show you it's supposed to be idyllic, but you have to go through get into a gated community to get there. Anyway, so now indigenous tribes, as I was saying, they do not think and feel any order of judgment or sorting people out into, the heaven people over in that corner and the hell people over in that corner. And if you remember Rowan Atkinson as Toby the devil, we'll have the bankers over here and we'll have the Christians over here. Oh, we had you fool, didn't we? And that sort of thing. I don't think any of that judging, putting people into corners really goes on as an indigenous way of living, being, feeling, and using the psyche within us. We don't place people into corners. We shouldn't do anyway. I don't think so. Anyway, there's two divisions that we are very aware of, though. Two sets of two divisions I think we're very aware of. But each one of them has a lovely transition. So one of them we can talk about is daylight and dark. Every 24 hours, as we've measured it out, of daylight and dark. No, we don't have that. Something like that. The sunset is like that transition between daylight and going into night. And of course, right now, the northern hemisphere, the night's a lot greater. And there's also, as well as that light and dark, temperature changes, weather differences between summer and winter. Here's another one. That was on the Lockrue video. That's kind of good for that. And even so, the day and annual cycles have transition times between the two, as I say, and transitions in the annual cycle between winter and summer. We got spring and autumn, and we observe that through the equinoxes. So from the sojourn time, it's the end of the transition. We're going into winter. We're going into where we seem to focus and celebrate the dark, the underworld, the otherworld, and the spirits from there coming through to us, and we going to there or meeting them at the veil. And all of this is about the ebb and flow, to me, of the conducting of the flow of life, not putting people into corners, I don't think. Anyway, I find it fascinating that this is demonstrated quite well through folk dramas, has been right through since medieval times. And the folk dramas are performed from Samhain right through to winter solstice time. And they're performed, the oldest form, I think, are the solas. They've sort of come out of the, what did the medieval people call them? I'm trying to think of them, not sanctuary plays. They had a word for them in the medieval times. Anyway, out of that came the solas, and I think I've got a picture of solas here. Yeah, there we. Oh no, that's that's the Galatians. That's how I started off. I was a Galatian. I think in my younger years, like 8, 9 years old, and I stuck with it. I kind of stuck doing that through my teens. I ended up being the geysers. She's like the geysers, and then going on to mummers. And my first job was actually involved with mumming, which is very surprisingly. So from the 19th century, yeah, they're souling people, I think. They dressed up. It's hard to tell the difference, but from the 19th century, we had the mummers. And through the mumming, the world has, as I say, the early medieval origins. But the type of mumming that you see here onwards was revived 19th century Celtic Romance, all that type of thing. And it was performed door to door and in pubs. There's a lovely crowd there. I'll talk about the straw making. Originally, the straw costumes were done before the improvised, use your parents' cut up clothes before that was done. Well, there's two types. Some troops, they mix up the two, clothing and straw. It depends how skilled they are and how much time there is for the straw makers. And they, from probably Victorian times, late 19th century, after the Industrial Revolution, there was a lot of increased poverty as well. So people will be going door to door to try and get themselves a little bit of loot and also food and things to keep them through the Christmas, keep them through the winter. And there we go. That's actually an island. I think that's in County Sligo, that picture of going door to door. So it did come over to Ireland as well. And the reason that this was happening from the 19th century is printing machines had gone into mass production. And so because printing machines were available at a much lower cost, people that felt like being entrepreneurs could afford to buy the printing machines. But when they got the printing machines, what the heck can we print? Because there wasn't really investigative news people in those times. So the one thing that these printing business did was get old manuscripts, old songs, even notation of dances, and they would actually print these and get the street sellers, the broadsheet sellers. They would be on the streets. People would buy them. I think I got a picture. Let's see, is this a broadsheet seller here? Yeah, there you go. You get this sort of person be selling this, and people would be buying these sheets off of these sellers. And the scripts for folk dramas, mama plays, was one of the things you could buy off of these people. And what would happen is people would buy these and they would take them home, get together with some friends and family, and together it would be great as an evening entertainment to try them out. And that's how it got popular. So the core theme of these mama's plays is, and it was very simple, you got two knights that would brag about their deeds, and then they would get into battle. That's the broadsheet seller. They asked two knights getting into battle there. And one knight is to represent the good, the other knight's to represent evil. And the so-called good knight ends up killing the so-called bad knight. And in that case, St. Patrick has done the killing, because that's probably done in Fermanagh somewhere, because there's so many stories in Fermanagh and the northern counties of the Republic of all the deeds that Patrick did with his me and McCrozier stories that I tell about in the first harvest, that type of thing. And then you get a babbling, whimsical Mad Hatter is the doctor, and the lad on the right, and he appears and he brags about his healing abilities. And that, I think I got a script. There you go. That's a typical script from the quack medicine man who appears. He gets the middle bit, because the knights actually talk in rhyme, but not the doctor. Anyway, he cures the fallen evil bad knight. And do I have a bad knight? No, I don't. Anyway, he actually does heal the so-called bad knight, and the bad knight rises a stand ready to fight another day. But before he does that, he gives the good so-called good knight a hug. They all have a good hug, and everybody cheers and celebrates. And if you think about it, go back to those first three Star Wars movies, the ones that were released, whether in the 70s. Look into it, and what it is this very expanded version of a mama's play that's been placed into space. You know, think of Darth Vader and Luke, who bonded after being enemies right through the 3 episodes. What happens at the end after Darth Vader is being killed off? There's an embrace between him and Luke. Anyway, I think we could get. Let's see what your. I think I'll go to the next guest now. Look at your. There's a few people coming in from the YouTube, which is nice. We're going to have our next guest now, Penny Stevenson, who's watching here, but she sent in a lovely video, and this is, if I get the right one, this is absolutely beautiful. This is Penny Stevenson with a bit of harp in the background, and I Am Spirit.
I met Spirit in the wood, walking through oaken cathedrals, their buttressed branches framed by sky. Reaching up, the Holy King his throne reclaims, with bright red berry from deepest shade. The path before me strewn with leaves from disrobed trees, stripped of Bridget's greening mantle. Showers of acorn as they land upon the earth like tiny hand grenades explode. Rich chocolate scents of decay and damp rise up, intense, emotional. Mycelium network reveals its fruited form, witch's butter, and fairies' baths glow on the woodland floor. Silken threads of spider's web brush against my cheek. Through bracken deep I see her shape, bright-eyed, translucent, and I am changed. I feel the surge of upwelling love in me. I met Spirit in the wood.
Thank you very much, Penny. That's absolutely beautiful. Penny, a regular here on Nature Folklore, great supporter, so thanks very much, and is actually watching today. And as I noticed the comments coming in, lots of, seems to be a bit of a conversation coming in from our lovely YouTube people. Let's see what we got. The Feather in the Heart is Lev's talking about. Sable is in, apologizing for being late. There's always the replay, which is brilliant. And there's hello, Sable, here from Lev. And Sable says hello back to Lev as well. Wonderful. And we've got Paula Achenbach, Gate into Heaven. That's a curious image, isn't it? That's what I was talking about. As white people become more in fear, we see more of this in the state. The gated community of heaven. Thank you for extra comments. And there's Cyril here. Here we go. Cyril Clark. Some mumming still done. Oh yeah, the Newfoundland. You can put some comments on that, because I have done features strictly on mumming and the origins of it. I'm just doing a flash thing for today, and I usually bring up about Newfoundland. And of course, in Newfoundland, from what I understand, it got banned for a while, and it more in Newfoundland seems to have expanded into being parades, very much like New York. How is it for the door-to-door tradition there? Maybe you can catch up on, Cyril. Has it gone back to the small scale like in the UK and Ireland, and also around various parts of Europe, especially the Balkan countries? So I'll be intrigued if you can make some comments of how it's still done. Is it still the big processions, or is it the door-to-door small tradition like we got? Thank you very much, Cyril. And Lev is saying hello to Cyril too, which is nice community spirit going on here. There he is. Hey, Cyril. Very good, Lev. And Cyril says, hey, Lev, back. Paul, Folktales give us a glimpse into what Young calls collective consciousness. Definitely so. Again, other nature folklores, I do go into that, but that is certainly the theme, I think, behind what we're talking. I think if you look, watch last week's Nature Folklore, I went into that whole collective consciousness as far as memory and the collective memory. We covered that quite a bit last week. Right, Sable. I feel many of those old customs are a way of making money outside of agri season. They had no social programs, and it created sort of entertainment industry. Yeah, exactly. Great point to bring that up, because they wouldn't have been waiting for the next drama. They wouldn't be waiting to go off to the cinema house to watch the next film. So there was a double thing here. This was entertainment. Certainly, if it was central to the village as it was at the time, or the community, part of the central activities, along with the music and the sharing that would be going on, particularly around bonfires. But the door-to-door ended up being a replacement and development from that, because, okay, let's get to the people before they actually get to the fire and the central celebration. If we get to them first, then we get the money off of them first. So there was some of that thinking, and these people were quite poor. And then, of course, because these were troops, they were like buskers. They were ferocious to each other. They were like gangs. I mean, from the end of the 19th century, earliest 20th century, it got very vicious. You know, some people, if they thought, a troop was in a more lucrative one of their own, they would try to creep into that district before the troop does. And if they met, there was hell broke loose. Now, what happened when I was in the job, I was so keen on this that I actually went around to theatre companies and said, are you interested in someone to direct and develop folk drama as a sort of another splinter off from your theatre stuff? And the theatre said, that sounds like a good fundraiser. And at the time, Glastonbury was boarded up. This was in the 60s. Nothing was happening in Glastonbury. And we were in Bath, and they were saying, in Glastonbury, nobody's really featuring the stories of Glastonbury. Why don't we do this? I'm not going to go into the full story, but that's what we ended up doing, is using the characters in Glastonbury folklore, Arthur and Merlin and etc., put them into the folk drama. We perform them in eating areas until we had our own eating area, and we used to perform that in Bath and other villages as well. And there were troops around the West Country doing mummers, so we were kind of integrating into that, but bringing in local folklore, whereas villages might be bringing in local characters of the village. Anyway, that's a rush around explanation what I did as a youngster. And beautiful, says Cattle. That must have been from Penny. Wonderful. Beautiful Penny from Paula as well. That's thank you very much. And Cliff Carr's another fan as well. Name for what, Paula? If you can expand on that, that'd be fantastic. Anyway, to carry on, let's see, right, and carrying on this. Yeah, I'll carry on pretty much the same thing, because I find it hard to believe that the trick or treat that when I lived in the USA, it was amazing that was what it was. And that's really ventured over into Ireland. It's ventured into the UK, even in Scotland, where when we were there raising a family, the geysers coming around and performing was a big thing at so on. And my own children did that, and we did it ourselves as adults. But now it's trick or treat. They've just got rid of the performing thing. Really sad. And it's quite amazing that it's become down to just house begging. And the mummers and other folk drama traditions and the characters, they're kind of fading away. And I think many people doing the trick or treat, some of them in some parts, some areas, do dress up as part of these former folk drama characters, but a lot of them dress up as television superhero characters. There's lots of Supermans, Batmans, and there's very much a sort of set template for fairies, isn't there? So a lot of it's got lost. But the thing is with the trick-or-treaters, they don't actually perform their parts, but they still want to be paid in candy or cash, don't they? And I think the whole point of these folk dramas, the mummers' plays, etc., was not originally to promote heaven and hell divisions, like I was saying, and certainly not to cause racial divides. And obviously, they're carrying a message as well, like I was showing with the doctor reviving the so-called baddie, and they had a hug. It's all about not holding on to revenge as well. But of course, these dramas, when they perform, they carry out versions of medieval battles and conquering culture, but it is in line with what's happening with the seasons as well. We are ending that transition of summer going into winter, where there's a sort of an autumn battle. We don't want winter, that's the baddie. But of course, the two of them hug together, and we've got a whole new cycle, and then the emote comes along and everybody's happy again. I should be back on the pictures again. Let's see. There's people about to go door to door to say they're taking on some of the characters that they were. That's lovely. A character in the middle, that's a modern version, but there's a character in some of the plays going, is Biddy. Now, it's a very tidy looking Biddy. If you're familiar, I brought it up on Nature Folklore a few weeks ago, is Biddy in County Clare, the healer. And she was quite a person for collecting the money as well. And generally, Biddy is the same as the hag, the wise woman. And a lot of these troops, one of the characters they developed into was who is going to be the person that collects the loot, because nobody, especially if they got the hoods on, don't want to collect the loot. So there was always a hag person, a goddessy type person, I'm trying to think of the other names, a Morgany type person who would have a bag. And I did have some pictures somewhere of an ugly Biddy, as they say. I shouldn't say ugly, really. There's the divisions. But she's the one that actually makes the circle. She's the one that makes the magic circle, especially in pubs, especially outside. And the circle is where the troupe is going to perform. So the first thing, roll up. She's like the ringmaster. And that's where you get the ringmaster from, because she creates the ring, and she does it with a chalk or whatever she's got, usually chalk. And as she's going around making a ring, she has a rhyme, a roll up, a player's about to begin, and blah, blah, and she'll be going on. And she's rattling her bag to show that it's going to cost a bit of money, and the troupe do their stuff. And then she'll walk around the circle out at the end of it, and she'll be collecting the money, and come on, fill it up. So she was the money, but that's a very neat looking Biddy. Anyway, that's obviously for if it's a charity, of course you'll have a lovely Biddy as well. That's a medieval representation visitation. That wasn't mumming, but it just shows you where it comes from. That there was some sort of celebration at this time dressed up as animals. And I brought that up last week as well with the fires, that how there's an association with people and animals, not only of humans crossing the veil, but of care of animals as well. So people dressed up as animals, and certainly in respect for the animals that they'd be killing off for the feasting, because they didn't have butchers, they didn't have supermarkets then. So the animals brought down off of the hills. They were kind of for the winter, but they would have a feast and an indulgence before sharing out later. So those are like people dressed as the animals and getting into the earliest of folk drama. So there you go, a medieval connection. And they wouldn't have been called mummers, though mumming was around as a word in those times as well. Yeah, that's you might be familiar. Those are the Armagh players. They're very active between now and Imbolc, doing the various celebrations, especially on Macha, which you might know as Navan Fort. But I believe the intent these days upon audiences is very different. Even today, with the watered-down trick-or-treat traditions, I believe many of the participants believe that they are acting out the role of play acting of some of the characters. And these are characters they believe have crossed the veil and crossed from the other world. And if people pay them with fruits, nuts, candy, or coins, you know, as I say, it was part of entertainment, but people have this sort of ladder kind of superstition. A lot of us say, nothing happens when you walk under a ladder. But of course, we still walk around the ladder. And though these troops coming, they're dressed up, like I was showing something there, you know, they'd be dressed up like that. They're not supposed to be recognizable. But of course, once they start speaking, of course, the local people know who they are, but they pretend they don't know who they are, just in case that's a deceit as well. It isn't the people they think they are, the entities from the other side. Maybe they've come over and they're very good at impersonating these local people they know. So the superstition is still there. And so people believe in some generosity. Originally, it was fruit, nuts, bit of food. These days, candy, sweets, coins. By doing that, just in case they're from the other side, by doing that, they made the payment. And so they're now protected through the winter by the entities, by the Sidhe, by the fairies. And that's the whole belief system of it. They won't think of it as racketeering, of course. And then the tradition tells us that the home and the people, as I say, they're blessed by the otherworlders. We got some more otherworlders. There we go. There's some more there. Anyway, the idea is through the winter, through visitation of these, there's no more harm from the other world in response to household kindness. So there you go. The entities will protect them, be protected. I'm going to talk about these people now. Maybe the earlier mumming players and players of other folk drama formats, maybe they did not, as I say, they didn't go performing door to door, I don't think, that much before the 19th century. Maybe the ploughboys did on Plough Monday, which is middle of January. But it was more likely that mumming and folk drama was more central as a community performance, which I've repeated a few times anyway. And later years, they performed in taverns. We used to perform in taverns quite a bit. And anywhere else where people were too lazy to attend the central community celebration. So you're trying to get you're trying to get the loot from every possible angle you can. So the taverns used to be the first place because people, just have another point. And so it goes on. Anyway, mumming is still a popular tradition throughout England and Wales, and especially in villages and small towns. But there in the UK, it's mainly performed through Christmas and New Year and January now. But in Scotland, very much a Samhain thing. But the geysers used to call at Samhain, and they've largely been replaced by the trick-or-treaters, which is a great shame. Anyway, I find that sad anyway. But in Ireland, the planters did bring over the mumming tradition and the guising tradition because they were from Scotland anyway. So this came into Northern Ireland, and somehow they managed to mix up the Scottish guising with the English and Wales mumming. And so that not only became active in what's now Northern Ireland, it spread over into Donegal, into County Sligo, Leitrim, huge in Leitrim, and Cavan, and even into County Longford. And down in the southeast, in Wexford, the Welsh tradition moved over in there as well and got along to Waterford. And gradually this got further inland into the Republic of Ireland. But the tradition changes because when you're in Ireland, you hear more about straw boys and the run boys. And but there are two very active groups. And that's why I wanted to bring this one up. This is the Olga oh, take a drink, John. This is the Olga Board Mummers. They're in Fermanagh. They're up by Loch, right beside Olga is on the side of the Upper Loch Earn, and it's they're actually directed by the very talented Jim Ledworth. Let's see, there he is. There's a couple of the mummers. They're up, what's that, Knockninedy, I think, if I got that right. Anyway, it's one of the fairy hills of Ireland. There they are, there's three of them. And Jim's actually the person on the right there. You can't help but recognize him. He's the chief. He always has more fancy stuff on his straw helmet than everybody else. And that's how you know Jim Ledworth. And he's got a huge passion. He's multi-talented. And he actually invites folk drama troops from all over Europe and around the world, especially, as I say, the Balkans, brings them over so they can teach what they do to the local mummers. He loves to spread it out quite a bit. And he was in Fermanagh with his troop, and who should come by but there we go. Well, I think you know who he is. And there were some great cartoons. I haven't put the cartoons up, but anyway. But anyway, that's a hat maker there. And there are courses going on at the moment, and the Olga Killian would run courses for making the hats and the costumes, so they can go door to door. And in Leitrim, we've got the amazing, stunningly talented Edwina Guckiam. A lot of people are familiar with her for the She Knows Dancing, and she's become quite famous around Ireland for this, and with her young dancers and following the myths of ancient myths of Ireland. And this year, Edwina has encouraged people to grow oats. And she's gotten them to do the whole thing right from the beginning. And she's encouraged people. She started off in May, getting them. There was a distribution of seeds. Come on, grow some oats. Even if you've got a corner of your garden, grow some oats again. Because that was a very abundant survival crop here in Ireland, especially in Leitrim, and she's making a reference to Leitrim all the time. So she started up the Sowing the Seed project last spring, and a lot of good help from the Leitrim Council, County Leitrim Council, also the Heritage Council. So it's great. They put all this funding in. There is actually good funding in Ireland for this sort of thing. So all these courses have been free, and they're conducted by Edwina, which is absolutely wonderful. They're really lovely. And then after moving through, they harvested their oats that they grew, and they threshed their oats traditionally. And now she's encouraging people to use the oat straw from their little crop of oats to make those disguises and costumes like what that lad's doing here, doing it a bit more simple than that. I think on my profile, I'm going to put a video up of her and her father going through the process of making a helmet. It's absolutely fascinating. I couldn't put it up on this today because of copyright matters. Plus, it goes on quite a while. It's about 20 minutes, step by step. But it's worth seeing. But they're really repeating the tradition like what was in Leitrim. She's not actually pushing people to perform the folk drama this year. She just wants to get people to dress up and get used to going door to door. And also to have a poem ready or a little story. And I think I'll bring that picture up again. You know, something like that, and no picture. There we go. Something like this. You know, they're not going to be like that, but eventually dress up in straw, but she's advising people, if you can't make the straw stuff in time, put some masks on, make paper masks, get some old clothes, a bit like what you would do for trick or treat, but put a bit more into it, bring in the poems, bring in the stories, and bring back this crossing the veil tradition. And I've sort of encouraged something similar on Nature Folklore broadcast, of course. So you'll hear from our next guest or two. Come on board, share your poem, story, song or tune. And from the Augakilly Maud people, I've got the broom dance. Let's bring on the broom dance, which is one which was happening during a hat making session. Over the bar now.
Was it fast enough to do?
A little bit of broom dance there from the people that were making hats at the time. Cathal, if you're around, we've got Cathal Trainer has been patiently waiting around. He's sort of gone off the air in the moment, but if you're around, Cathal, I'm going to bring you on from some poems in a moment. There he is. And Paula loved that broom dance. She loved that broom dance. I see he got himself a cup of tea. That's the best thing to do at the moment. Yeah, did I get that? Yes. And S. Lee, who from the YouTube, beautiful there. And Cloud, Kate Cloud Sparks, loves the broom dance as well. Paula, yes, Paula. There we go. Come on, Paula. We honor the winter solstice with a troupe that does folk stories of Norse origins. There you go. Of course, in Minneapolis, just like Upper Michigan as well, since there's many who have Scandinavian roots. Thanks for bringing that one up. Yes, that is very relative. And there's Penny. I'm sure you were very much involved in this. Let's have a look what Penny's saying. We get out with our lanterns carved with neeps. Interesting fragrance. Of course, Penny is from up over the border, so she know all about what guising is and so forth. We had to perform a poem or dance or a song, or we got nothing. That was it. Geisers got nothing unless you did something. And they were actually invited into the home to do something. It wasn't just hanging on the doorstep with a sack, go on, fill it up. It was none of that. All our outfits were handmade, and it was a great family community event. Well done, Penny. That's really explaining the guising exactly as it was. Absolutely great stuff. You know, there's a lot of fun, the whole family getting it together as a family. And then you and the children, you're out there and you're joining in with the community. You got your poems, your stories. You're not just going around with something you bought at Amazon or something, stick it on your plastic and you go around. This is what through Edwina and others are trying to bring it back. Because the performance is good for the individual, as I've encouraged in Bards in the Woods and here on Nature Folklore, is, you know, it's an outlet for your voice, because that voice, as someone was saying earlier, from the collective consciousness, from the inspiration, from the other world, it comes out. You're sharing your voice, and you feel good about it, because it's not, it might seem to be an ego thing, but you're actually sharing it, and you're listening to others as well, because you're not only performing, you're in with the others. It's a real a lovely circle thing, rather than hell, heaven divisions. It's a real education in circular cycle living, I think. Anyway, thank you so much for going into that, Penny. Wonderful. I better stop here. Yeah, I knew this would come up. Because I talked about this last week. Here we go, the Welsh tradition, and I assume that's sort of sneaked up there around where you live, Cliff Carr. It wouldn't surprise me as well. In the Wirral that gifted with chocolates. I was going to feature some of the characters, but I haven't really got time for that. And here we go. Do you know Tracy Chipman? No, I haven't come across her yet. Penny Stevenson's last name. There she is. There's Penny Stevenson, in case you asked that one. There we go. She's here and she was watching. I think we've got onto that really well. Now, all these people that were going to come on live, we actually have one live person who I've been keeping on for an hour, which is sort of sorry about that. And I'm going to put the headphones on, because we've got Cattle Trainer here, who's been a regular over the years. Wonderful poet, wonderful person all round, very interesting. And let's bring Kath on board now. Hey, how are you doing there? Thanks for patiently waiting. Great.
Not at all. It was very interesting. Very interesting indeed, John.
Let's get you onto a bigger screen. There we go.
Yes,
You've been keeping yourself well.
I'm not too bad, thank you, John. I'm not too too bad. I'm fine, thank you.
Great. I've been watching some of your posts and the things you bring some interesting stuff up. So what are you going to share with us today, if you can give a lovely introduction?
Well, I'd like to share just a couple of short poems with you. But also like to recommend, I'm sure many of you have already done this, but recommend the great John Moriarty. He discussed an awful lot about the world between the veils of imagination and history and heritage and mythology. He discusses a great one about moving through the lands in North Wales and finding a crack in a rock and moving in and finding the Knights of the Round Table still asleep in there, in the imagination. So recommend that. Okay, a couple of poems for you. First one's called Winter Sonnet. Can you hear me okay, John?
Oh, you're absolutely clear. Half your head is missing, but apart from that.
Right, okay. Well, okay, let's make sure the full head is available. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Here's the first poem, John. It's called Winter Sonnet. Of course, Samhain, I refer to this in a poem, and also the she, so I'm not sure everybody here listening is well aware of that. So, Winter Sonnet. Samhain turns its face to wintering night, leaving the ripening autumnal brown to fall to chilling air and frosted light, the withering of woods and forest flown, to the touch of snow upon branch and leaf, left glistening there in the moonlight glow, where she, in darkening shadows riding thread, and the hunter's arrow flies from his bow, to seek the target of his hidden eye that lies beyond the border of all things, that breath on earth and fly the starry sky, that breathe on earth and fly the starry sky, to seek the Western Isles where magic sings, the magic of what is happening now, his drawing breath as he tensions the bow. And my next little one for you was called Naked to Tara. And of course, that's the hill of Tara that I know you're all aware of. And it's a phrase that John Moriarty uses in one of his books about Ireland and the mystical world of Ireland, the mythology and the link between the seen and unseen. So I like that phrase, Naked to Tara. So it's called Naked to Tara. My havocked mind yet still endures the vagaries of space and time, locked by the doors of birth and death between. In the unseeing world I walk unclothed, my passing through this fateful age unsmoothed by any circumstance that might be seen, aid my pilgrim soul, naked to Tara. The ancient paths that lay their lines alone to the omphalos of the Tara stone, where seers in boots of deerskin may see sunrise before the rest of the world, I walk in sandals of the morning sun. And if we could just finish up with one little poem, and it's more about a paean or a praise to some herbs. I know you are very interested in growing herbs, John, and maintaining a garden. And this is a few herbs. This poem may expand, of course, because there's so many herbs out there, but
Great.
Here's one that, just for a few herbs. A paean to some herbs, balm and motherwort, for virtue's sake, for wounds and stings, for heart and mind. Archangels and dead nettles descend from heaven for aches and pains, and fevers give ease. Celadine the greater, relief often with oil of chamomile, the tooth and cramping pain can soothe. Chicory, Egypt, India, and China knew, that lies most bitterly on the tongue, Galen gave for liver health. House leek, Charlemagne did use and choose to pull Jove's beard to cool burns and scalds and dampen the heat of fevers all. Lady's mantle, a woman's herb to staunch blood loss for firming skin and cuts to heal. And dandelion, taken flower and root to where power to deliver lies. So as I say, that's a work in progress, John. So many good herbs out there to praise.
That's absolutely wonderful. Each time you come on, you just get better and better. I mean, those are really spot on for what we're going through today. So thank you very much for that, Carol.
No problem. Back to you.
And I hope in the meanwhile, I will send out the invitation, but the subjects that covered with the Holy World's Revival, I'm sure you got something for that. So I hope you come on board with that until we come back with Use Nature Folklore in 2024. So thanks for all your appearances. That was fabulous. Thank you. And I think even Paul is here asking, where can we get the copy of your poetry? And it has become really good. You really have to think hard about that and get it out there. It's wonderful.
Well, I'm planning to self-publish probably before the end of the year, at the end of probably in the beginning. And once I do, I'll let you know, John. But if anybody wants to email, you have my email address there, and if you want a copy of the poems,
right, we'll get on with that.
No problem.
Certainly. Thank you so much for that, Carol. Thank you. Always a treat to get him on board. Let's see what we got. And then Paula is thanking Paula for the Stevenson name. Clear up. And Penny is alone. I know there's a fan of cattle there. Yes, Tara. Wasn't that really spot on there? That the imagery of that really was crossing the veil into Tara. And I haven't had time this year to talk about Tara, but there it was, all in one poem. So I didn't need to. So thank you very much. And Paula says, please keep us informed, cattle. That's spectacular. Now, the rest of my pictures have gone belly up, but so the rest of it, if you can imagine, I've got a few minutes left of stuff here, but I'm sure you can imagine that's the time. This is what this session's about in a way. Anyway, I think the important imagery of the Swan time is of people crossing from the other world to join us living humans on Earth, just like Cattle's Tower was indicating, and doing this during the wintry entry days of Samhain, which we're upon now. The midpoint is tomorrow. Was it 10 something in the morning is the midpoint between the autumn equinox and the winter summer solstice. And though the dramas are played out by local people through the disguises of mummers, geysers, and straw boys, all this was to, as well as for entertainment, as we talked about, it was to inspire the arrival of passed over people in the form, maybe we imagine them not only as the mummers, but we might even consider the mummers themselves as being entities, the sidhe, the fairies, all these imagery that we have and believe in from the other realm and the other side of the veil. And Eva Burke, the current chief of the Order of Bards, Oveys and Druids, she said a lovely thing in an interview. It was actually in Farmers Weekly this time last year. But it was a lovely thing in this interview that she had. And for Farmers Weekly to actually integrate a bit of folklore into their farming is lovely anyway, because nature folklore and hands-on farming, that's what it's all about. It's the integration of this. So this was lovely. But what Emma said was that at this time, the way she describes this time, being a very druid type of self, well, she has to, being the kind of chief of the bards and ovates and druids. And what she was saying is, this is the time the kayak comes. Some people say kayak comes, and I assume this is as the wind, and Penny might back me up on this, because in the Hebrides, the kayak, they always say when there's a windy and a storm and there's a swell on the sea, it's the kayak dancing on the waves again. And that's how she's interpreted in Hebridean traditions. But the kayak, she was saying, this is Zima, comes to strip the leaves from the trees. And this is what happens this time of year. We're getting these winds coming. It happens every year in Ireland, and it certainly does in the UK. You got all these golden leaves. All of a sudden, the wind comes along overnight. You get up the next morning, you got your bare trees again. All the leaves have fallen. So that was the kayak, dancing on the waves, dancing on the wind, stripping the leaves from the trees. And Emma says this is also tuning in to the accelerating the decay of flesh that's buried under the soil from the year past, from the year cycle past. So the leaves falling all feeds with this decay in the soil that's been buried to feed the new life that's all going to be born from the Imbolc onwards. Lovely. Get all this in Farmers Weekly last year. And at this same time, it's for us to be able to vision and form our mind's eye symbolism. It's a great opportunity for us all to stop and reflect on this. And for ourselves, and this is sort of definitely a tradition, we are under the ruling now of the Gregorian calendar. So we have our October the 31st for our Samhain, All Hallows Eve, and then we have the All Saints Day on the 1st, the 2nd, the Day of the Dead, the All Souls. So that first, what's become a tradition is to clear away all the lifeless debris around. We clean house. That's a tradition. And not only clean house, a lot of people actually go to the graveyards and clean around the graveyards. And so for some reason, we get into this November the 1st, the transformation, getting ready for winter, transform ourselves and our surroundings into a freshness and clarity, ready for our visitors and ready for when the days extend again. So no wonder, as I say, we've got this cleaning tradition on November the 1st. It's welcoming the arrivals. They've got a neat table and so forth on the All Souls Day and Day of the Dead. And so there we have it. Just like the mummers in battle, they kill, get rid of the unwanted. But the unwanted is used up again to feed us with something better. And the killed person comes alive, ready for that new cycle. So, okay. All this transformation stuff is lovely and very vitalizing, isn't it? But what's it got to do with the veil and being in that thin vortex between this and the other world? And even us crossing this now, crossing the thin veil, or those that cross over from the other side of the veil to greet with us. Now, before I go further with this, I'll make a comment or two about some discussions, especially this year. There's a lot of Puritans in the traditional world, in the folklore world. And the sort of heavy-duty discussions lately leading up to this, the Halloween and so on, is questioning, debating, even arguing that the veil is a modern word. It doesn't belong in tradition. It isn't truly ancient folklore. But I don't think, as I've been saying, I don't think these concepts are new, but how they are translated and visioned are new. The words we might use are new, are different. But the words we may use now, take veil anyway. That we've got a new use for that, and it's not the only new word. I think even words like pagan, there's various others I bring up. You go back 300 years, the word was used for a different purpose to what it is today. And as I say, the invisible veil, almost invisible, developed probably by the 19th century spiritualists, this new interpretation. But before then, the veil was actually a Latin-based word that was spread significantly by the Normans, even though their origin is Norse. And the meaning of the veil was really, and it's quite familiar still too, is as of a woman's face covering, because a woman wearing a veil is communicating humbleness, modesty, and even virginity. Of course, that's big in Islamic faith, but it's in weddings, the bride wears a veil as well. So a woman's veil was also regarded as a protection from abuse. In ancient Islamic Persian, they regarded their temples having a veil as well, so that the temple area wouldn't be abused. And another thing, unfortunately, this is the sort of darker side with the woman's use. Woman's veil is worn as a symbol of submission to patriarchy as well. Now, the change of the veil word being an invisible barrier, a veneer, or a thin membrane between two worlds may have started actually as a white barrier. That was what the spiritualists might have imagined from the white bride's veil and other women wearing veil. So you're getting a bit of a corruption of the vision of the kayak taking off a veil to reveal herself being in action in this earth through winter, whereas through the summer she keeps a veil on. Now, with the weather and the brisk nature changes, the sweeping over the ground, not so much this year, it's pretty mild, and a few storms, and there's activity on all this activity going on underground because the kayak, the hag underground, all these entities underground are very busy through the winter getting things ready for the Immelk, whilst it seems incredibly still and naked above among us humans. Anyway, I've got one other guest that came in last minute, and if I can get it lined up, I just put it on. It's from Dekina Elora. I gave her the background of the poem, and she actually got it into me about 5 minutes before I went on the air. So I let her introduce it because I don't.
A silent roar.
What?
A silent roar wakes up my soul between the stones that built my castle. A witch, they say. I howl to the moon, the sun strapped into my heart, while the wall pretends I'm here to pass. A fantasy of the mind of a woman child not ready to grow or belong to man. Run, boy, away from my sight, or I'll catch your soul in the darkness of my eyes. I'm the wild card of an unruled mind that dares to dream where hope dies. Heavenly hell for the flesh and mind, bite me to temptation, so the witch arise. I want to feel the thought of your touch, breathe your soul with every word, spinning out of control into chaos to meet the void. I want to break destruction into ashes, surrender the world at the feet of love, godly thoughts that scream and pour fairy dust into the world. I want to dream reality to wake up into my heart so my tears can flood this empty land. A witch, I say. The course to care and drown in pain, free from your opinion and what's correct, can only be lived through a lonely place where magic can sit and rest. The black soul that holds all rainbows will haunt your dreams when she's asleep, and the lie you dare to live will be the finger that points at me. A witch, you say. You be right. I'll go left. You'll use your fear and your judgment to get me dressed with pointy hats that children scare. My naked body too much to take, so you'll find a reason to be offense. A witch I am. Reborn through the fire that runs through my veins, the spoken word that spells were made. Bring me to you to be seen and felt, that break the walls your mind accepts. Breathe me in, to let me out, to crush your labels with every step, while I push through the exhaustion of not being what you expect. The theft that chokes my being sits there. Let me in to not be held, so I can free the demons that my angels crave, so I can walk my path of destruction through your hidden pain. Run, boy, to my arms instead. Come into my darkness, so your light will raise. The witch I am will build the place that dreams can only taste, and your soul craves. I am witch, a reality to be lived, the homeland of summer's dream that I bring to you for your soul to breathe.
Oh, isn't that stunning? It's Akina and Laura, and got it in last moment. Akina and Laura, she's with the Barrow Poetry by the Barrow, with a group there. That's where I discovered. And last week I showed the background. She sent the video of the background. She says, when I got off on a sunny day, a fine day, and she would do the poem. And apparently that fine day was this morning. And she did that this morning and got it in last minute. And what we got going here, thank you. Paula says, Cattle, if you want me to email to my email address. There's Tony Trainer at gmail.com. That's his email address if you want to keep in touch with Cattle there. Great. And Penny is confirming what I was saying about the kayak dancing on the top of the rolling waves blown in by the northwesterlies, and her frosty fingers trace patterns on icy paths, and her icy breath blows the leaves from trees. So there you go. That's definitely a Highlands and Islands Hebridean description of what goes on when she arrives. And Cattle, beautiful, and that's for Laura's work. It is, wasn't it? I'm so glad we got that in the end. Now, one thing is, a lot of New Age thinking and beliefs, people send to this. I used to find this out when I was working even around as people came into Glastonbury, early 70s. Early 70s is when these sort of cult leaders arrived. And there was a New Age thinking and belief that came of Saint Germain. Saint Germain was amongst their beliefs. And apparently Saint Germain claimed that the veil is really an illusion. But illusions are helpful to souls who need a thought form, something to hold on to. And the amount of daylight in a day, of course, right now, it is decreasing. And it's decreasing rapidly. We're living in more and more darkness each day for a while. Because of this abundant darkness, it does seem that we're truly kind of into a time when people believe that spirits are crossing over into our realm. We know them as the she. These are the entities that the storytellers tend to pull into stories, and they call them the fairies, these she. So to this time of Samhain, when we believe borders between our realm and the other world are at its most thin, do we try to reach out to meet up with the souls that have passed on, or are they there reaching out for us? One thing to consider, and sorry I haven't got the graphics, I think I showed it last week. This is also, tomorrow especially, is the exact midpoint of the astrological sign Scorpio. And a major trait of the Scorpio influence is said to focus on plunging fearlessly into the unknown. And that's plunging fearlessly is what people feel that they're doing when they dive into what they call the veil today. And of course, we're not talking about the cover of women, not physical women, but the mystery of that unseen veneer or diaphragm of mist, we might call it, between the worlds and between the realms, that we do believe is the thinnest at this time, at the midpoint of Scorpio. And storyteller Eddie Lenihan, I love how he always has great simplicity as well as expression. I ought to do the Eddie Lenihan seat bit. And whilst doing this, he'll tell us that 364 of the days on this earth are all for us. 364 days, they're for us. But there are 2 days of the year that are for the fairies. And those are the 2 days for the fairies to roam on this earth. And they are on Halloween and May Day Eve. So anyway, that's me just about to sign off of Nature Folklore broadcast for a while. At the moment, it looks like 15 months in 2024. I'll be back then. And I hope when I do come back, because I'll have the stuff in books and on videos, I won't necessarily have to go through this stuff like I've been doing. Sometimes it's just me, but I've really enjoyed where we've had the guests today and last Sunday as well. So I'm going to try harder to make this much more of an entertaining variety version, just like we did in the Bars in the Woods, an outlet, a folklore circle type outlet for the poets, the singers, the people, what they should be doing when they're going door to door or for the community. So I'm looking forward to that. But meanwhile, my 2023 goal, as I say, is to get these 4-book series of Nature Folklore out. You'll have them as a reference and around you. And as we have these sort of variety shows, you can look back and say, well, this is what John used to say about this, and this is what it's all linked to. But I will be bringing out short videos on Nature Folklore channels ahead of book releases, and these will be like little teasers about what I'm writing about. I'll still be broadcasting the Holy Wells Revival at 7 p.m. every Wednesday. That's 7 p.m. Irish time in the evening. And it's a shorter broadcast, so it's not so demanding for me to put together. So thank you for your support and your interest here on Nature Folklore so far. And as I say, there's more to come through the books and however we do it next time. Sorry, I'm being rude here. So I trust you'll continue to enjoy Nature Folklore, whatever mediums and formats I introduce them to and create. Let's see comments that we got from you here. And Sherilyn is saying a thank you there. Wonderful. And Penny, stunning imagery like the filly might have delivered in the courts of the chieftains, and Cattle's thanking that as well. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And thank you all, of course. This has been incredible. Coming up, I better tell you about the Holy Wells Revival, since I'm going into it. Got some lovely subjects coming up on that. And we've had some lovely subjects if we go through the archive. On Wednesday, this Wednesday, it's going to be a hands-on thing, how to find hidden holy wells. And then on 16th of November, going to go into some healing story at Holy Wells. That'll make up for the cursing one that I did last Wednesday when I went through cursing. And then the 23rd of November, I'm going to be talking about guardians at Holy Wells. There's one more. I hope I've got it. I'd like to leave you with this. I hope it's here. Yes. I'll say bye-bye to you after this one.
Here we go.
And through the misty night, my flock together. The horses raise their heads in question, but there is no pain here. And as I stare upon his perfect face and see the fathoms deep within his eyes, the sadness, the human loneliness, he says with a sigh, things are not right. And he goes from me, and the dawn is slowly chasing away the moon, and it stares at the rising sun for a while. And like my lover fades with the dawning, fades with the dawning, fades with the dawn.
Thank you. That was Claire Roach there with Symbolic. That was in the church on Tara. And the background pictures there was from the lighted tree labyrinth, which is how we close the tree labyrinth after the summer season. And we'd have groups together. So you got a bit of that as well. So I'm glad I could throw that in. So thanks very much. Thanks very much. We had amazing guests. Denise Terry, Penny Stevenson, cattle trainer was here, and the broom dancer for Olga Killing Maud was here, and we had Dakini Laura, who came in last minute, and there we finished off with Claire Roach. Absolutely wonderful. So for the parts you've missed, you can watch the replay, the archive, which is fantastic. Make your comments, questions. I'll keep coming back and answer those from time to time. Thank you all for watching Nature Folklore on and off over the last 2 to 3 years. It's wishing you a safe time until we until we meet again, and for your week on, well, it's going to be more than a week, unless you join me on the Wednesdays, which would be brilliant. And there's sorry, something was stuck there last minute. Never mind, we'll get there. But enjoy, safe week, safe winter, full of wonder, inspiration, and enchantment. Some of you I'll see on Wednesday evening, which is wonderful. So until next Wednesday, until we meet again, play well. Slange to all of you. Bless you all. Thank you so much for supporting Nature Folklore. Keep supporting. As I say, the books and little videos will be coming out, but the live broadcasting is all going to be on the Wednesday. So I think that's all I got from me. I ran quite a bit over time, though it's not surprising and worth it with the guests that we got. So thank you very much. And really, so it's bye of this form of Nature Folklore for now, and I'll see you on the other form. Thank you.